फंसाएगा, शादी करेगा, उसका जीवन बर्बाद करेगा, तो क्या उसका जीवन जीवन नहीं है?
लेकिन if she is an adult then she has a right, she has a choice.
उसको चॉइस है, पक्का चॉइस है, और उसको शादी करने की पक्की चॉइस है। लेकिन उसको पता तो होना चाहिए ना, उसकी आइडेंटिटी छुपा रहा है वो सलीम उसको सुरेश बन के शादी कर रहा है, उसका हमें विरोध है। हमें विरोध शादियों से नहीं है, शादी इस प्रकार से होती है, उसका विरोध है। और ये विरोध मुझे ही नहीं, आपको भी होना चाहिए, और यहां बैठे हुए सबको होना चाहिए।
But Harsh, you know, the nature has become about this entire conversation is going in a direction that this is happening at large scale. These are few cases.
नहीं, not few cases. मैं आपको फिर से एक बार निवेदन करता हूं, आप इंडिविजुअली एक बार सर्वे करिए। ये एक मॉडस ऑपरेंडी है, मैं बहुत जिम्मेदारी से कह रहा हूं, ये एक मॉडस ऑपरेंडी है। ये कोई केसेस भूल से केसेस नहीं हो रहे, ये नादानी में केसेस नहीं हो रहे, ये मॉडस ऑपरेंडी है। और ये मॉडस ऑपरेंडी को सामने लड़ना ये हमारी जिम्मेदारी, और यही जिम्मेदारी है, हमें लोगों ने ये जिम्मेदारी दी है। तो इस प्रकार की बेटियों को बचाने के लिए अगर लव जिहाद के लिए किसी को सामने आना पड़े, तो मेरे जैसे लोग आते हैं सामने, और आना ही चाहिए, क्यों नहीं आए।
Let's talk about the bulldozer which is happening now. ये कौन सी कार्रवाई हो रही है?
कौन से बुलडोजर्स?
जो विकास के नाम पर धार्मिक स्थलों पर।
द्वारका, भगवान द्वारकाधीश पूरे देश की करोड़ों लोगों का आस्था का केंद्र है। चाहे द्वारका हो, सोमनाथ जी हो, कच्छ हो, जो भारत पाकिस्तान की बॉर्डर पे बसा हुआ डिस्ट्रिक्ट है। मैं द्वारका की अगर आपको बात करूं, तो द्वारका का जो समुद्र का तट है, वो कई बार जहां से इलीगल ड्रग्स बरामद किए गए हैं, और वो समुद्र के तट पे जो लोगों की व्यवस्थाओं के लिए सरकार ने रिजर्व रखी हुई जमीन है, वहां पे कोई इलीगल घर बनाए, बड़े बड़े महल बनाए, और ऐसे घरों में से ड्रग्स बरामद हो। क्या आप चाहते हो कि सरकारी जमीन पे इस प्रकार के अतिक्रमण हो, और वो अतिक्रमण को हम हटाए नहीं? भगवान सोमनाथ जी ज्योतिर्लिंग है, जहां पे आसपास में हजारों बीघा जमीन, जहां अगर आप हिस्ट्री में जाओगे तो वो जगह किसके लिए वो सुरक्षित रखी गई थी? वो जगह गुजरात के नागरिकों के हित के लिए, किसी स्कूल्स बनानी थी, कहीं पे भवन बनाने थे, कहीं पे लोगों की सुविधाओं के लिए, चिकित्सा के लिए हेल्थ सेंटर्स बनाने थे। ऐसी जगहों पे बड़े बड़े महल कैसे चलाए जाए? भारत पाकिस्तान की बॉर्डर पे हजारों एकर्स पे हजारों घर बना लिए जाए, और वो बॉर्डर्स को सुरक्षित रखने के लिए सरकारी जगहों पे जो घर इलीगल बनाए थे, वही हमने बुलडोजर घुमाए। आज तक चाहे आप अहमदाबाद के चंदोला तालाब की बात हो, चाहे द्वारका की बात हो, चाहे सोमनाथ की बात हो, चाहे कच्छ की बात हो, जितने भी बुलडोजर चले हैं, सभी में कोई ना कोई हाई कोर्ट या सुप्रीम कोर्ट गया है। आज तक एक भी केस या एक भी जजमेंट सरकार के खिलाफ नहीं गया है। यही बयां करता है कि हम जो भी कर रहे हैं वो सच कर रहे हैं, हम न्याय के साथ काम कर रहे हैं। हमने कभी भी कोई गलत जगह पे बुलडोजर नहीं घुमाया आज तक।
इस कॉन्वर्सेशन को रैप अप करते हैं हर्ष, और क्योंकि प्राइम मिनिस्टर मोदी का 75th बर्थडे था कुछ दिन पहले, और आप उनके साथ डायरेक्टली काम करते हैं, वो डायरेक्ट इंस्ट्रक्शंस भी देते हैं क्योंकि उनका गृह राज्य है। उनकी लीडरशिप स्टाइल के बारे में क्या कहेंगे? कितने बजे पहला कॉल आता है?
मैं देखिए, मोदी जी, आप सब लोग मतलब मेरे से भी ज्यादा अच्छी तरह से आप भी जानते होंगे, मैं जरूर ये मान रहा हूं। खास तौर पे मोदी जी बहुत ही हार्ड वर्कर लीडर है, और मैं एकदम बहुत ही इनिशियल टाइम में जब हम युवा मोर्चा के कार्यकर्ता थे, एक छोटी सी मीटिंग में हम जब बैठे थे, वहां कोई मीडिया नहीं थी, ना कोई कैमरा था, ना कोई फोटोग्राफर था। मेरे जैसे कई युवा वहां बैठे थे। उन्होंने एक बहुत ही अच्छी बात बताई, जिसको मैंने मेरे जीवन का मंत्र बनाया, और मेरे जैसे लाखों युवाओं ने इसी प्रकार से उनसे प्रेरणा लेके जीवन का मंत्र बनाया है। उन्होंने एक लाइन बताई थी कि पॉलिटिक्स, ये एक दूसरे पे आरोप लगाना, ये पॉलिटिक्स नहीं है। पॉलिटिक्स किसी का जीवन सुधारना, पॉलिटिक्स सोशल सेक्टर में सबसे ज्यादा लोग कैसे मदद कर पाए, ये पॉलिटिक्स है। मैंने मोदी जी को देखा है, बहुत करीब से काम करते हुए देखा है। उनकी माता जी का जिस दिन देहांत हुआ, कुछ ही घंटे के बाद वो कंटिन्यूस घंटे भर उन्होंने बैठकें ली, और वो बैठक कोई पॉलिटिकल बैठक नहीं थी। वो बैठक में अंबाजी के आसपास के एरिया में रहते हुए ट्राइबल जो फैमिलीज हैं, उनको ज्यादा से ज्यादा रोजगारी मंदिर के आसपास में स्वरोजगार कैसे मिले, उसके लिए वो खुद बैठे थे। ऐसे कई इंसिडेंट्स में मैंने उनको देखा है। वो विषयों में बहुत डीप तक जाते हैं, बहुत डीप तक जाते हैं। और उससे भी ज्यादा कई बार मैंने देखा है कि उनके सोर्स जो है, इंफॉर्मेशन जो है, वो इंफॉर्मेशन में कई बार हमें हमारी मतलब हम सोचते हैं कि हम लोग यहाँ पे बैठे हैं गुजरात में और हमें नहीं पता है, तब तक उनको पता चल जाता है। नॉट ओनली इन गुजरात, कहीं पे भी, क्योंकि वो हमेशा एक्टिव होते हैं और कहीं ना कहीं मैंने देखा है कि वो हमेशा दिल से काम करते हैं, और वो बहुत दिल से काम करने वाले व्यक्ति। आज भी मैं देखता हूं वही एनर्जी के साथ, वही स्पिरिट के साथ। अब मुझे लगता है कि वो डबल काम कर रहे हैं, डबल एनर्जी के साथ और डबल स्पिरिट के साथ। आज भी उनके चेहरे पे कभी भी थकावट नहीं होगी। आज भी किसी को भी, कोई भी बिछड़ा वर्ग होगा, उनकी बात अगर निकल जाए मीटिंग में, तो वो आप देख सकते हो कि उनके इमोशंस कितने उनसे कनेक्टेड है और किस प्रकार से वो डीप में जाके कैसे उसका रास्ता निकाले, कैसे उनको ज्यादा से ज्यादा व्यवस्थाएं, सुविधाएं दे पाए। उसके लिए आज भी ये लेवल पे बैठने के बाद भी वो यहाँ का भी सोचते हैं और यहाँ का भी सोच सकते हैं। वो लीडर का नाम है नरेंद्र मोदी।
All right, I think that is the right note on which we have to end this discussion. Thank you so much for your time, Harsh Sanghvi, the Home Minister of Gujarat, on the dais here.
सुकून से मुलाकात कब होती है? जब गुनगुनाती बारिश को पहली बार गले लगाते हो। शायद सर्द वादियों में जब गर्म कंबल से रूह सेकते हो। या शायद उस पल में जो बिना शोर किए बहुत कुछ कह जाता है। सुकून के हर पहलू से कीजिए मुलाकात हिंदवेयर के साथ। हिंदवेयर, डिजाइन्ड फॉर सुकून।
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com.
Appreciate your joining us here, Justice Chandrachud.
Thank you very much.
I want to start with a contentious issue raised by someone who's a member of the Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council, Sanjeev Sanyal, who has said the judiciary is the biggest roadblock to building a Viksit Bharat. Judicial delays, failure to enforce contracts, all of which is leading to bottlenecks in the system. Do you agree that the judiciary is the biggest roadblock to a Viksit Bharat, Justice Chandrachud?
Expeditious disposal of cases is the key to the preservation of the rule of law. What does any foreign investor, or for that matter, a domestic investor want? Certainty, transparency, and objectivity in the application of standards, and effective early disposal of disputes which come to the court. Now, that is not happening. There's no doubt about it, that we are plagued by the delays of the law. But to say that the judiciary is the biggest roadblock would not perhaps be the correct perception. Because why does this take place? It takes place first because the judiciary lacks infrastructure. Who controls the budget for the infrastructure of the judiciary? The government. Second, what is the reason for the delays? The government is the largest litigant. Who files cases in the courts quite often without justification? The government. Third, who enacts laws which add to the burden of the judiciary? Laws are not enacted by the courts. Now I'll give you a very simple example. Section 138 of the Negotiable Instruments Act, the check dishonor cases, which have flooded our courts. So the answer to it, I'm not blaming government, I'm not blaming parliament. The point which I'm making is when new laws are enacted, particularly in the post-liberalization era, like the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, or specialized laws on electricity or securities or competition, a statutory or parliamentary audit has to be conducted on what is going to be the impact of these laws on the infrastructure. Now, if you build an airport, to give you a very simple example, it's not exactly on point. If you build an airport without a highway linking it to the airport which you're going to build is going to be of no consequences. So we need to build the infrastructure of the Indian judiciary. Also, create conditions by virtue of which the truly meritorious people who are trained enough to meet the challenges of our time get appointed to the courts.
So you're accepting there's a quality problem somewhere there. Quality of the judiciary is a problem because Mr. Sanyal then went on to say that judges get long vacations. Why do you need to have such a long vacation in the summer, for example? That's a colonial legacy. So there's a quality of judiciary problem. There's a question that whether, as you yourself accept that there is a judicial infrastructure problem. Do you concede that judges need to perhaps end these long vacations?
The origin of vacations is colonial in nature. But you ask any judge of the Supreme Court, what do they do during the vacations? They're not vacationing. You need the vacation to prepare judgments. That's the time when judges write judgments which are dealing with some of the most seminal issues of our time, which will impact on which way our society is going. Judging is not just a question, Rajdeep, of disposing of cases, but of reflection, of thought. You need judges who will have that ability to reflect and bear on the consequences of our judgment. But more important than that, when we say that you should scrap the vacations, well, judges would agree with it because judges can take their leave through the year whenever they can. The vital stakeholder in the system is the bar, the lawyers. Now, lawyers, whether in the states or in the Supreme Court, typically get their work from the districts. They have to go back to their districts. Many of them are very deeply connected to their roots. Unless the lawyers are on board, you will not be able to run the system.
Before Kaushik takes this forward, I just want to ask you, quality of judiciary. Would you concede that the best and brightest are not entering the judiciary? Do you concede that or not?
Yes and no. At the lowest level, that is not so. When we have competitive examinations for recruitment to the district judiciary, 70% in many states, in most states, 60 or 70% of the new recruits are women. And these are the best and brightest minds from across legal education who are entering the district judiciary. The problem arises in the higher judiciary, when you're recruiting, say, district judges from lawyers, or worse still at the level of the high courts. What's happening is that unlike when I became a judge 25 years ago in 2000, now there is an increasing reluctance on the part of lawyers to become judges. Not solely due to the difference in emoluments between what a lawyer makes at the end of a week's argument in court and the salary of a judge. There are other soft perks which judges get. You have a stable salary, a pension, medical benefits, so on and so forth. The real problem which many people face is the intense social media scrutiny, the intense trolling which takes place against judges by certain segments of the polity which want to bend the independence of the court in order to secure outcomes which are favorable. Good people don't want to get into this anymore.
I'm going to come to that later, but go ahead, Kaushik.
You said good people do not want to come into judiciary, become judges. But at the same time, you have to wait till 45 years of age to become a high court judge. And then the system of appointment, which is always criticized, that opaque system of collegium, and also judiciary blocked the government law because which was tilted towards executive. So in that process, we see a lot of appointments which are very controversial. Recently, the elevation of one judge was dissented by a Supreme Court judge, part of the collegium. So in that case, how do you justify elevation of good individuals or good lawyers to the higher judiciary? Because along with that, there is also the criticism of nepotism. Like you were criticized when you became a high court judge at a very young age because you were a nepo kid. That was the criticism. It often comes. So it's called the uncle judge and all those things that come in. So in that context, how do you see smart, bright individuals, lawyers coming into judiciary, coming into becoming a judge?
Now let's face it. If you want to appoint a CEO to a top corporate organization in the country, and you lay down a rule that you will not become CEO until you turn 45, people will say in today's times, what does age have to do with talent or merit? Now, we have laid down not constitutional principles. The Constitution does not say that. But as Kaushik just said, we have this unwritten convention which is actually part of the Memorandum of Procedure, in terms of which a High Court judge cannot be appointed ordinarily until you turn 45. Now, what does that lead to? Because people must understand that. I took 13 years of judgeship in the Bombay High Court before I became the Chief Justice of the Allahabad High Court. I spent 3 years in the Allahabad High Court as a Chief Justice, which meant that I put in 16 years before I became a judge of the Supreme Court. Now, if I was appointed only after 45, I would go to the Supreme Court at 61, leaving me 4 years to deal with cases in the Supreme Court, which is just not adequate enough. So the point of the matter is, just as India is changing, we are a country which is reaping the demographic dividend. We are essentially a young country. And why should we not apply this principle to the Indian judiciary? Recruit people when they are young. If they are good, age should not matter. If you are not good, age is in any case irrelevant. You don't take them because they are not good. The second point which you made about the opacity of the collision. Kaushik, it's important to understand. It's great, to speak, on a television show or in an academic journal and say that there should be more transparency in judicial appointments. But when you're considering people for appointment, you're looking at everything. Their personal lives, their income, their antecedent social and other background. Do they have problem areas in their personal life? Now, if you put all of this in the public realm, the danger is that good people who are as it is shirking away from becoming judges will not even want their names to be considered. So there is this balance which you have to draw between the privacy of the individual who has been selected for appointment and the need for a certain degree of transparency. Transparency, you're perfectly right. There has to be transparency, not in terms of evaluating the merits of every candidate out in the open, but in laying down established objective criteria on the basis of which you will decide. And finally, when you asked me, whether I was one of those...
Why should that elevation be dependent on the discretion of 5 individuals or the collegium?
Again, that is not entirely a very correct way of looking at it. The members of the collegium in the High Court consult widely. They consult other colleagues who are drawn. For instance, when I was Chief Justice of the Allahabad High Court, I consulted all my colleagues pretty much. Asked them who are the good names, who are worthy of consideration. And then you find out details about them, their performance, their merit. How many cases have they done? Are they specialized? So on and so forth. Now, your final point about me personally, something which is really a less known fact, I was asked to become a judge of the High Court at the age of 38, which was when I was appointed Additional Solicitor General of India. And far from my wanting to continue to be in the fray for High Court appointment, I walked up to the then Chief Justice Y.K. Sabharwal, and said, please relieve me of this burden of accepting judgeship. I wanted to walk out for the reason that I had a whole lot of personal issues at home. I don't know whether I should be saying it on a platform like this. My late former wife was suffering from cancer. We had to get a house for her to live in. And if you wanted to take a loan, you had to have the money to pay for the loan. And you can do that only if you're a lawyer. So I asked the then Chief Justice to just let me be free. I didn't want to become a judge, even at that time. And ultimately, whether you're a product of a nepotist system or no, you must judge the person's work. Just don't go by these labels that someone is, connected or has some network. Look at the quality of the work which that person has done. I'm not speaking for the quality of my work. You assess it, let society assess it for themselves.
Let's turn to the question of constitutional morality. There is a general belief that in today's world, you need access to the judiciary to get speedy justice. If I am a Kashmiri Muslim who has been arrested under the Public Safety Act in Jammu and Kashmir, you will sit on a habeas corpus petition for years. And this was a charge made against your judgeship as well. After Article 370 was abrogated, thousands of people were put in jail. They struggled to get access to the court. On the other hand, if I'm privileged and I have access, the courts are always open for me. Do you agree that we have a dreadfully unequal system that reflects perhaps the inequalities of our society? If I'm a slum dweller living in an unauthorized colony, no judge is going to ever even look at me. On the other hand, if I live in Sainik Farms, which is allegedly unauthorized, but I'm influential, who knows, the judges will give us a early hearing, true or not?
Rajdeep, since your comment is anecdotal, let me give you true facts, anecdotal evidence to the contrary. When I was Chief Justice of India, I came across a case where an individual who was convicted of an electricity theft was sentenced to 2 years of imprisonment. Now, it was a conviction which was imposed after the case was compounded. Compounded means that the person accepted their guilt and he was subject to 2 years of imprisonment. Now, unfortunately, there were 9 such cases where this person was convicted. So it meant that in 9 cases, each of which he had been sentenced to 2 years imprisonment, he was sentenced to 18 years of imprisonment. For what? For electricity chori, or for, in other words, theft of some electrical power cables. I'm not belittling the offense, but certainly it's not an offense for which you should be sentenced to jail for longer than what he would get if he committed an act of murder. He never challenged it. He never, because he was too poor. He was a poor Muslim person. He never came in challenge against the conviction in any of those cases. He finally filed a petition before the Allahabad High Court saying that how can I be in jail for 18 years for theft of electricity? The Allahabad High Court said, sorry, but you never challenged your conviction. He came to the Supreme Court and we set him free. We said that, look, even though this is a solitary voice challenging the imposition of a sentence, of a total sentence of 18 or whatever years, this person must have a voice in the system. So it's, very easy to flog the judiciary by saying that, well, these are the people, slum dwellers who don't get an opportunity of being heard or whatever. It's to the contrary. You'll see, for instance, in the bulldozer demolitions case, where, bulldozers were used to demolish homes. Mine was the first judgment in the Supreme Court, where we said that, look, we are governed by the rule of law. And you cannot demolish people's homes by sending the bulldozers in without following due process.
Sir, but Kashmiri students, with due regards, have taken years to get their habeas corpus petitions heard. Even the Chief Minister, former Chief Minister Omar Abdullah was struggling to get heard by the Supreme Court.
Well, insofar as habeas corpus petitions are concerned, when I took over as Chief Justice of India, we prioritized 2 categories of cases. First, matters involving habeas corpus, and second, cases involving bail. And that's where I think leadership makes a difference. Because ultimately, the leader of the institution, be it a High Court or the Supreme Court, has to lay down the priorities for the system.
Justice Chandrachud, I'm sorry to intervene, because even on bail, you were accused of sending most of the bail petitions to a particular judge, Justice Bela Trivedi, who was known not to give bail. And therefore, as master of the roster, you were accused of actually preventing people from getting bail. Umar Khalid being a classic example.
Rajdeep, it's very well to make this general unsubstantiated allegation. The facts are to the contrary. When I was Chief Justice of India and I said we prioritize bail, in the 2 years that I was the Chief Justice of India, we granted bail in 21,000 cases. Over 21,000 individual citizens of India got bail. And when you say that, well, a particular individual didn't get bail, I've been on record to say that, well, in my court, A to Z got bail. Every single individual who deserved bail got bail.
You did not get bail. You.
Just a second. If you didn't get bail, 1 second, it was not my courtroom. I'll deal with that issue about Justice Bela Trivedi that you raised. But are you aware of a P? Pawan Kheda? Pawan Kheda was sought to be arrested as he was boarding a flight. Right? Kaushik, you belong to that part of the country at Guwahati?
Yes.
His lawyer comes to the Supreme Court at lunchtime and mentions that my client is being arrested because he said something distasteful. Let's not make any bones about the fact that what Pawan Kheda said was distasteful. I mean, Dr. Singhvi himself, when he made that case, said that I don't stand by my client's statement. My point is, this is not a case for arrest. Who protected him? The Supreme Court protected him. Second, your assessment that all cases of bail were assigned to Justice Bela Trivedi is factually incorrect. Cases involving bail are dealt with by every single bench of the Supreme Court, for the reason that the largest inflow of cases into the Supreme Court are criminal cases. So every single judge of the Supreme Court deals with criminal cases, which are allotted on a random basis by computer. What happens is that suppose, Rajdeep, you and Kaushik are in the bench, right? And you retire. And then Kaushik joins me in the bench. Kaushik retires. After you retire, the case will be attached to Kaushik. After Kaushik retires, it will be attached to me. That's the way the Supreme Court really functions.
Kaushik.
These are well-established conventions. Let's not make a grievance about one case into an issue about the system. Okay. The system is, the facts of the system are very, very different. On an individual case, Rajdeep, you may have a difference of opinion as to whether someone should get bail or otherwise. The last thing which I want to say is, we have in India the presumption of innocence, which is to say that an individual is presumed to be innocent unless he or she is proven to be guilty. And that means that ordinarily bail should be the rule, jail should be the exception. Equally, we have well-established principles. Is this individual likely to tamper with the evidence if they are released on bail? 2, is this individual likely to flee from justice if that individual is granted bail? Just as individual personal liberty is involved in the grant or refusal of bail, equally, there is a societal element in prosecuting crime. So very often we just ignore the element of societal interest in the prosecution of crime, which was equally important, because you don't want our streets, you don't want our communities to be unsafe for individuals. So the work of a judge is not simple by any means, because you're drawing this balance from case to case. Whether the balance has been drawn correctly in a case or not, by all means, we are free citizens of a free nation. You're entitled to your freedom of speech and expression. But let's not tarnish the system on the basis of unsubstantiated facts.
Okay, let's move to constitution now. You often talk about the importance of constitution. There is a basic structure of the constitution, and if I am not wrong, you also mentioned about it. Now, from when do we start this basic structure of the constitution? From the time it was adopted? From the time it was adopted? Or from the time these two words were added to the preamble, secularism and socialism? Because if we go by the fact, if you say that it should be, the basic structure should be from the time it was adopted, then this insertion of these words, even if by the parliament, is a violation of that basic structure, logically. I'm not debating about the two words, but so how do you see the basic structure of the constitution? Because one former Supreme Court judge has also said that we need to debate actually the basic structure of the constitution.
Kaushik, the answer to your question is very simple. When a court, especially the Supreme Court, declares the law, the declaration of the law, insofar as the constitution is concerned, goes back to the inception. Unless the Supreme Court says that the declaration of the law will be prospective. So the Supreme Court can today say that, well, we are ruling this to be the legal position, but it will take effect from 1st of October 2025, in which case it will have prospective effect. Otherwise, the general principle of law is that any declaration of law is always retrospective. And insofar as the high courts are concerned, they have no power of prospective overruling. So to answer your specific question, once in 1973, 1st of April 1973, if I'm not wrong about the date, the Supreme Court in Keshwanand Bharati's case said that there is something called the basic structure of the Constitution. What is the basic structure? Democracy, equality, liberty, fraternity. Once that was said, that is a defining feature of the Constitution as it was originally adopted. The concept of basic structure, in other words, will not be with effect from a much later date, but to my mind, it defines the original features of the Constitution. Otherwise, look at how absurd it will be. Can we say that because democracy was inserted in the Constitution before 73, democracy is not a part of the basic structure? Obviously it is. Equality. Article 14 was always a part of the Constitution. Can we say that that's not a part of the basic structure? Obviously it is a part of the basic structure. So the question really answers itself.
Of course. So you mean to say, Justice Chandrachud, because these two words were inserted much later, even after 1973, so these two are not actually part of the basic structure? Secularism and socialism?
So you see, there again, as in the law, you must always understand the nuance. Is the insertion of a word in the Constitution, does the insertion bring about a change in the legal position for the first time? Or is the insertion a recognition of the position as it already existed in the Constitution? Now, one way of looking at it is this, that the Constitution, when it was originally adopted, by the Constituent Assembly, and then brought into force in 1950, the Constitution always spoke about the equality of faiths. The Constitution always spoke about your freedom of conscience. So one way of approaching it, in fact, I have said it in one of my judgments, that is to say that the Constitution as it was originally enacted postulated this fundamental pluralism of our society, the need for inclusion, a recognition that we are a multicultural, multi-religious, diverse society. And there are various provisions of the Constitution which give vent to this particular doctrinal position. Once you accept that, then a particular insertion may be only a recognition of a position as it obtained. Now, secularism, as you know, came in as a result of the 42nd Amendment, which was the emergency amendment. There are two views. One way of looking at it is, well, it was brought in 1976. The contrarian view is, but it's just a recognition of what the Constitution always assumed as a fundamental principle.
Okay, I just want to bring a photograph. We have just 4 minutes. I want to bring a photograph because I want to look at your personal compass. One thing is the judiciary's compass. Take a look at this photograph because it caused controversy. Looking at that photograph, critics of you, because you mentioned social media, immediately said, Justice Chandrachud has set a dangerous precedent blurring the lines between the judiciary and the executive. How do you respond? Narendra Modi ji coming for a puja at your house, all of it photographed. Do you believe it set a dangerous precedent blurring the lines between the judiciary and the executive?
Rajdeep, there were two criticisms of people who criticized. The first category of people had a problem that I openly accepted the fact that I perform a puja. I make no bones of the fact that I'm a devout Hindu, that I'm committed to my faith. But interestingly, let's not forget that the oath which a judge of the Supreme Court takes, the oath begins by saying, I do swear in the name of God that I shall bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of India as by law established, or you of course solemnly affirm. So our Constitution is not agnostic to religion, nor is our Constitution opposed to religion. That's the first.
Yeah. The second.
The second that I want to postulate is this. Though each of us as judges are entitled to believe, pursue our own faith, whether we are Hindus, Buddhists, Jains, whether we are Sikhs, whether Zoroastrians, the justice which we do is even-handed among communities. Every single day, if you look at the cause list of any court, you will have communities across the board seeking justice, to whom even-handed justice is delivered. Third, and the third point which is about the Prime Minister coming to the residence of the Chief Justice. If people have an objection about the Prime Minister, well, this was an easy handle to target the Chief Justice for inviting the Prime Minister. Between constitutional functionaries, let's have an element of how we are not leaders of opposition parties. The judiciary and the executive, the Chief Justice of India is not the leader of the opposition. Of course, in the work which we do, we are independent of the executive. The Prime Minister visits the homes of judges when there is a marriage in the family. When my mother passed away in 2014, January, when I was in Allahabad, the Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh then came to my house to visit me with his wife, just the four of us. So these are elementary courtesies of constitutional office. They have nothing to do. And the ultimate test, Rajdeep, is this. How is that person performing as a judge?
But that precisely is the question. The context of this was the judgments you gave, many of which were politically loaded. Article 370, you effectively endorsed the government's decision to repudiate Article 370. Then came the Ayodhya judgment, where you, on the 5-judge bench, was accused by critics again on social media and lawyers and jurists of putting faith above law. You yourself, in October of last year, said, I prayed that I would get the right judgment. You now, in a recent interview, have gone on to say that the original act of desecration was the erection of a mosque, effectively suggesting a mosque was built over a Ram temple, something that your Ayodhya judgment doesn't say. There you leave it open. Now, after retirement, you're saying that the original act of desecration was the erection of a mosque. Now people are saying, Justice Chandrachud is showing his Hindutva colors. That what you didn't say in the judgment, you're saying now openly, and thereby giving a Hindu viewpoint. You yourself, sir, in the judgment said, the act of December 6, 1992 was a criminal act, and yet go on to give the title to the very group which was accused of committing the criminal act. So therefore, that's the problem. That's social media.
Before you answer, I want to add one question to that.
Can I just answer this question and then take the second question?
Same question.
Because but then you have to leave me a little time for the answer.
Okay. Because you just mentioned about secularism, so you have admitted that it was actually a title suit. It was a land dispute, Ayodhya case. So in a land dispute, you also went on public saying that you prayed before the verdict, means you, so that it helps you. So my question is, do you pray every time you settle a land dispute to your God, or in a secular country by publicly publicly revealing that you prayed, did you not violate that basic structure of the Constitution?
Let's start with the first question, then the second.
All right, I'll answer the first question. I'll answer the first question first. First and foremost, you have put the entire context of the judgments that, well, we had decided Ayodhya, that we had decided Article 370. You know, Rajdeep, what's happening is this. In the age of social media, we are now so divided. And the perception of people in the social media is, unless you decide every single case along the ideological lines to which I means a person in the social media subscribes, if you decide every single case in favor of that ideology, then you are independent. Independence is also defined as only deciding cases against the government. So this is the definition of independence in the social media. The moment you decide a case against an ideology which is portrayed by a particular element in the social media, then you cease to be independent, you are pro-government. Now please bear in mind that just as one or two cases were, as you said, you know, they ended in a decision in favor of the government. On the other hand, I can give you example after example. First, the striking down of electoral bonds as unconstitutional. That happened just about the same time against the government. We struck down the electoral bond scheme as lacking in transparency. Two, was Aligarh Muslim University entitled to minority status? We reversed a judgment of our court of the 1960s and came to the conclusion that the judgment was wrongly decided. In the battle between the National Capital Territory versus the government, 2 consecutive judgments of the Supreme Court Constitution benches holding against the government, Parliament thereafter enacted the law, which the validity of which is under challenge. Speaking for myself, the dissent in the Bhima Koregaon case against the government, Aadhaar, I was the sole dissenter in the Aadhaar case. So I wanted to say this to you, and I'll go immediately to the latter part of
but
the
But you haven't answered. Original act of desecration was the erection of the Babri Masjid. Why didn't you say that, sir, in your Ayodhya judgment?
1 second. Give me an opportunity to answer. It can't be that, you know, it'll be a monologue from your side without giving me an opportunity to answer. Unless like lawyers or the social media, you're carrying a brief which you want to espouse before your audience.
No, I want you to clarify. I want you to clarify the position because you're trending on Twitter because of it.
The point of the matter is that when you don't give an opportunity to someone who's being questioned to answer,
sir, please.
And that's exactly my grievance with the social media, that you must hear an opposing viewpoint, which you must
So
hear.
explain that statement.
Right. Now, insofar as Ayodhya is concerned, what did I say? And what have we done in the judgment? This was a title dispute. What came to the Supreme Court was a first appeal against a claim on title. And we decided that on well-settled principles of adverse possession. Could the Muslim side assert that they were in adverse possession of the land and therefore they could perfect their title, which we held against them. At the same time, we allotted 5 acres of land to the Muslims, just as the land was given for the purpose of construction of the Ram temple. Now, answering the latter part of both your questions, which is crucial, and I'm happy that you've given me the opportunity to do that. The fact is undisputed that every single day that you enter a court, you're entering upon a zone of intense conflict. Now, speaking for myself, and I take that not something which is exceptional, but judges across the system. What is wrong about the fact that to bring a sense of peace, equanimity, and equilibrium in the work which you do as a judge, you pray every morning or you meditate every morning? Please allow me, and you may pray to a deity, you may pray to a broader spiritual force, irrespective of your religion. Please allow me that sense of equanimity so as to enable me to do justice with an even hand. I must also share with you that when I climbed the 3 or 4 steps of the Supreme Court to the Judges' Court and later the Chief Justice Court, I said the Navkar Mantra. I'm not a Jain by religion, but I would say the Navkar Mantra every single day. And what was the purpose of it all? So just, when I was Chief Justice of the Allahabad High Court, I went to a very sacred dargah near Barabanki. Now, I'm a Hindu, I'm a devout Hindu, but my religion allows me to pray across religions. When I go to Goa, the first place that I always visit is the church in Old Goa. So this is the broad diversity of my own faith, a faith which accepts the fact that just as I believe, I must have faith in other people's right to believe and to respect their faiths. So I don't think there's anything wrong in doing what I did every single day of my life as a judge, namely spending my moments in quiet reflection and prayer in the morning, so that the work which I do as a judge, work which is in a zone of intense conflict, does not end in injustice to anybody. The Constitution allows me to do it. Our Constitution protects the right of every judge to be a believer. And if I said that, I don't think that that made any difference. That question which you asked me at the end on what I said in the course of an interview, I think what has been done is, like again something in social media, that you lift out of context one part of the answer and then take another part of the answer. During the course of the same answer, I answered whoever the interviewer was the other day by telling him that the entire case has been decided not on the basis of faith, but on the basis of adverse possession. Read the judgment. And the problem is most people who attack us don't have the time, the patience, or the inclination to read 1,045-page judgment. Why was it 1,045 pages? Because the record was 30,000 pages in Ayodhya. People who don't read the judgment attack you because it's very easy to attack judges, right? I mean, you flog them on social media.
Do you want to tell us, did you write the judgment? Nobody knows who wrote the judgment. The general buzz is you wrote the judgment, true?
Rajdeep, I'm a disciplined soldier of the system. All of us took a decision that this was a dispute which had driven our society for hundreds of years, that we will speak with one voice to the nation. And that's the reason why we have not attributed authorship. Whether in office or in retirement, I maintain that I have to be disciplined as a judge.
One question about impeachment, judicial accountability. So we saw 2 cases of impeachment, 2 applications of impeachment were in Parliament. One was almost fast-tracked, and the other one, no action has been taken on this. Why I'm asking you this question, in both cases, you were directly, indirectly related, in a sense that when Justice Yashwant Verma's case came in, many people in the judiciary and on social media, there are inferences that he was close to you. And in the second judge's case, when his elevation happened, you had actually flagged his political affiliation. Now, how do you see this? Parliament fast tracks one impeachment and the other Parliament is not taking any decision, particularly the Speaker. So how do you see this difference? Is it political or is it, and in fact, the impeachment where action has been taken, the way it has been done is also legally questioned.
You know, Kaushik, the problem with your question is that your question always contains an innuendo.
Yes,
so I have to first
said
deal
that.
with, I have to deal with the innuendo just as I have to deal with the question.
Yes.
Now, the innuendo.
I want to be clear because innuendos flow and you don't get a chance to speak.
Right. The innuendo. You know, I have been in the Indian judiciary for 25 years. As a judge who is deeply committed to the system, I mentored generations of judges across India. I was part of the collegium which was part of the decision-making process in which Justice Yashwant Verma was transferred to the Delhi High Court. I happened to be the Chief Justice of the Allahabad High Court, a court where he was himself serving. But so also a large number of other judges. Justice Vikram Nath, who is one of the senior most judges here, was my colleague in the Allahabad High Court. Justice Manoj Mishra, who has come now to the Supreme Court, was my colleague. Justice Pankaj Mittal, who is a judge of the Supreme Court today, was my colleague. So what is the innuendo about, somebody being close to someone? That's the first point. Second, which is the more fundamental point which you have raised, on which there's a grain of truth and substance in what you are saying. Once a motion of impeachment is placed before the Speaker by the requisite number of members of Parliament, then to my mind, whether the motion of impeachment deals with Judge A or Judge B or Judge C, you must apply even-handed yardsticks. And that is my firm opinion. In other words, you cannot make a distinction between motions of impeachment by applying varying standards. Because ultimately we are dealing with the institution of the judiciary, its credibility, its legitimacy. And I think it's important, therefore, that any process for bringing accountability to the Indian judiciary must be even-handed in the standards which we apply across the board.
You targeted the media briefly there, saying, you don't give us a chance to answer. And as a judge, that's a difficulty because there's only so much you can say while you're a judge. But you found after retirement even more questions being thrown your way, including a controversy over why has Justice Chandrachud overstayed in the Chief Justice's bungalow. It became a headline story. Do you want to give an explanation on that? You're now in a better position than if you were a judge. Again, you were, in a way, being accused without perhaps being given your side of the story. So I want to hear, why did you overstay?
Thank you so much, Rajdeep, for this question. Rajdeep, Kalpana and I are parents to two special needs children who are our adopted daughters.
Yes.
The hard fact which I realized after I retired was of accessibility. You do not have homes, even in a place like Delhi. What about other cities where you could have access to children who are in a wheelchair? One of our daughters is connected to a tracheostomy tube and a BiPAP machine. Both the children are on wheelchairs. And we found that there are no ramps. If there is a ramp, the lift, there's no lift thereafter to go to the first floor or the second floor. Even within homes, within flats in Delhi, bathroom doors are not wide enough for a wheelchair to enter, for a special needs child to use the toilet. This is the hard fact, Rajdeep. And this was something which I pointed out to the then Chief Justice, that I need 2 more months for me to find suitable accommodation. For those 2 months that you overstay, the government has a standard schedule of rates, market rent, for which you have to pay the government. But surely, I do expect that after 25 years of having served the nation, 2 months, particularly when neither of my successors were going to occupy the home of the Chief Justice of India, this is not too much to ask.
Okay,
but he not only, the CCI not only shamed you in public by writing that letter, also he took dig at you in public events, mentioning about that he would vacate it and congratulating another judge that you have vacated it very next day after your retirement. How do you see that? It's a personal attack.
Kaushik,
CCI to another.
Kaushik, my philosophy of life is this.
1 minute more.
Life is finite. There's so much of good that we can do through our life and the time that we have as human beings. Why look at the negatives and respond to negatives, So I always look at the positives.
Okay, I'm going to end. As we end, you've had a long, illustrious career as a judge. You gave important judgment. Let's look at the positive. You gave important judgments, and I think you deserve a huge applause for decriminalizing homosexuality, Article 377. You deserve a lot of applause for right to privacy and your judgment that you gave on that. We may question your political judgments, but there were important judgments that have had important effects on society. After such a long career, which is that judgment you are most proud of, Justice Chandrachud? The positive, let's look at the positive.
Okay. Well, you know, if you ask me the same question tomorrow evening, I may have a different view because you do think about your answer, because there's so many judgments which came my way. But honestly, the one judgment of which I'm truly, truly proud is of getting women as permanent members of our armed forces. Because when I find a woman, as a fighter pilot on our Rafale jets or a Sukhoi, or a woman on the border guarding our lives and our nation, or a woman on a submarine or on a warship on high seas defending India, I feel that's what my deed has done for the nation.
But unfortunately, sir, in Supreme Court, the number of women judges are still not adequate.
Yes, can I just answer that in 30 seconds? As I said, at the lowest levels today in the district judiciary, about 60 to 70% of the new recruits are women. Why? Because legal education today has become extraordinarily broad-based, with women entering into the legal profession. The state of the Supreme Court today reflects the state of the legal profession, say, 20 years ago, when women who are now eligible join the legal profession. Unfortunately, that's how we climb up the ladder, right, to be eligible for appointment to the Supreme Court. You can't just appoint a woman who is, say, serial number 950 in the All India list of seniority and appoint her to the Supreme Court merely because you want a Supreme Court judge. These are some of the problems of service, because you also have men judges who've spent their lives in service of the institution. But I dare say now, with more and more women leading very successful careers in the law, the time is ripe now that these are women who are going to occupy important judicial offices in the future.
I think we've gone through a wide range. We have a very special discussion also coming up. We've gone well over our time. I also want to tell the audience, we had Aditya, I should tell Justice Chandrachud, we had Aditya Thackeray here earlier today, and Aditya Thackeray said, please tell Justice Chandrachud, his Supreme Court decides on stray dogs cases immediately, but when it came to the symbol case between the two Shiv Senas, they have not decided it. This is the problem with our judiciary. They do not address the real issues, the real tough questions of our time. You have 10 seconds. You want to tell Aditya Thackeray?
Yes, of course I have an answer to that, though it's after I left the Supreme Court. The point of the matter is this: the stray dogs matter came up as an interim matter before the Supreme Court. No Supreme Court judge can say that I will not decide a case even at the interim stage. You cannot duck questions. So the Supreme Court dealt with a case of, the stray dogs by passing an interim order. The case which you are referring to, Mr.
The symbol case, election
case. The symbol case is a final hearing which requires time. Now there are now 80,000 plus cases which are pending before the Supreme Court. You have 34 judges, all of whom dispose of close to 70,000 cases in a year. Our judges are not unemployed. They are working to the best of their ability every single day of their lives. Now, for every case which you take up, someone else is going to say, why didn't you take up my case? Are these not important? Okay. If you take up an old case, you're told, why didn't you take a new case? If you take a new case, you're told, why didn't you take an old case? Allow a degree of understanding about our institutions. Unless we do that, institutions are bound to collapse.
Which is the film that you like watching? Is there something that Justice Chandrachud likes watching? How do you relax? Music, film?
I relax with reading, music, watching films, of course. I've a film which I loved beyond anything else recently was 12th Fail. And the other film which I really loved was Lapata Ladies. So, two of my favorite films. And the third which I loved because of, my special daughters, our special needs daughters, was Sitare Zameen Par. And
okay. I know how much you care about your daughters, and often because we ask you all these hard political questions, the human side gets left out. Maybe one day we'll ask the human side also to Justice Chandrachud, and how he has truly raised these wonderful young daughters who now paint so beautifully and do so much else. Justice Chandrachud, for having answered all our questions, the tough ones and the soft ones. The problem is on Twitter, they'll pick up the soft ones and say you've been very soft with the judge. The others will pick up the tough ones and say you are batting for one side. That's the way we live, a very polarized, hyper-polarized world. But for joining us here today at the India Today Mumbai Conclave, taking us through all your questions, Kaushik and I truly appreciate your time.
Thank you
very much, ladies and gentlemen. Please give a big hand to Justice.
Thank you very much.
Moto G96 5G. All eyes on you.
सुकून से मुलाकात कब होती है? जब गुनगुनाती बारिश को पहली बार गले लगाते हो। शायद सर्द वादियों में जब गरम कंबल से रूह सेकते हो। या जहां नए रंग पुराने दोस्तों जैसे लगते हैं। सुकून के हर पहलू से कीजिए मुलाकात हिंदवेयर के साथ। हिंदवेयर, डिजाइन फॉर सुकून।
Hello, Moto. Do the Moto Moto.
Motorola Edge 60 Fusion, the undisputed, most loved phone. Grab Motorola Edge 60 Pro today.
Hi, here are the top headlines presented by Motorola. India hits back at Pakistan in UN, says Shehbaz Sharif lied in speech. Activist Sonam Wangchuk in Jodhpur jail after arrest under NSA. India seals thrilling win, beats Sri Lanka in super over.
City of Jaipur to interview our next guest for Unpolitics is the Chief Minister of Rajasthan, Mr. Bhajan Lal Sharma.
पहले तो ये बताइए, आपको पता था आप सीएम बनने वाले हैं?
किसी भी कार्यकर्ता को किसी भी सीट्स पर काम करने का उसको मौका मिल सकता है।
कैसे थे आप एबीवीपी में? दबंगी टाइप थे या दिमाग लगाते थे? अग्रेसिव थे? नहीं।
अगर आपका विषय अच्छा है तो अग्रेसिव भी होना चाहिए।
भजन लाल शर्मा जी की ऑपोजिशन से ज्यादा बनती है, अपनी पार्टी में कम बनती है राजस्थान में। ऐसे बनती है ऑपोजिशन से? अशोक गहलोत के साथ थोड़ी हंसी मजाक होता है?
विपक्ष सरकार की ताकत होता है, लेकिन मुद्दे अच्छे हों।
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com.
Indian cinema is gearing up for a historic moment as legendary superstars Kamal Haasan and Rajinikanth have officially confirmed that they will be reuniting on screen after an astonishing 46 years. The announcement was made by Kamal Haasan himself during the Nexa Seema Awards 2025 held in Dubai, sending waves of excitement through the Tamil film industry and across fans worldwide. While details about the film remain tightly under wraps, strong rumors suggest that the much-anticipated project will be directed by Lokesh Kanagaraj. Lokesh has previously collaborated with both actors individually, directing Rajinikanth in Coolie
Super!
and Kamal Haasan in the blockbuster Vikram.
One man's revolution.
Rajinikanth and Kamal Haasan, both products of legendary filmmaker K. Balachandra's mentorship, shared the screen in several iconic films during the 1970s. Their notable collaborations include classics like Apurva Rangagal, Mundra Mudishu and 16 Vayathinili, which remain fan favorites even today.
Watching India Today.
Hello, you're watching India Today and I'm Aishwarya Paliwal. Let's start the show with the headlines. Prime Minister Modi inaugurated key infrastructure projects worth 60,000 crore rupees in Odisha's Jharsuguda. He's hailed the education and the connectivity push that is taking place in the state of Odisha, reiterated Atmanirbhar Bharat and the Swadeshi push. Vijay kicks off his third mega rally in the state of Tamil Nadu. DMK versus TVK war now rages on. DMK files a complaint against Vijay alleging derogatory speech being made against the Chief Minister M.K. Stalin. Heavy rains disrupt the normal life in the city of Hyderabad. Gates of Himayat Sagar Reservoir have been opened, leading to flooding of the Musi River. The flooding has taken place in low-lying areas. Over 1,000 people living in the low-lying areas have been shifted to relief camps. India slams Pakistan at the UN General Assembly, calls theatrics by Pakistani Prime Minister for glorifying terrorism at the global stage. India reiterates zero tolerance towards terrorism, says Pakistan pleaded with India for a ceasefire. Activist Sonam Wangchuk has been shifted to Rajasthan's Jodhpur Central Jail. He's been kept in high security ward under 24-hour CCTV surveillance. The opposition has slammed this arrest. They're calling it unfortunate. I Love Muhammad poster war takes a violent turn in Bareilly in the state of Uttar Pradesh. Maulana Tauqeer Raza has been detained by the police and is being grilled. I Love Yogi, I Love Bulldozers posters have been put up in Lucknow. Top story that we are following here on India Today. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has inaugurated key infrastructure projects. Prime Minister Modi has reiterated the Atmanirbhar Bharat push. He's hailed the state-of-the-art GST reforms. Prime Minister Modi teared into the opposition at a rally in the state of Odisha. Congress looted people across the state. That's the statement that is coming in from Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Listen into what the Prime Minister said.
से लेकर शीप तक हर चीज में भारत आत्मनिर्भर हो। मैं जरा आपसे पूछना चाहता हूं, आप जवाब देंगे? मैं पूछूं तो जवाब देंगे? पूरी ताकत से देंगे? आप मुझे बताइए, भारत को आत्मनिर्भर होना चाहिए कि नहीं होना चाहिए? भारत को आत्मनिर्भर होना चाहिए कि नहीं होना चाहिए? देखिए, हर देशवासी चाहता है कि अब हमारा देश किसी पर निर्भर नहीं रहना चाहिए। हर चीज में भारत आत्मनिर्भर हो और इसलिए पारादीप से लेकर झारसुगुड़ा तक एक विशाल औद्योगिक क्षेत्र का निर्माण हो रहा है। कांग्रेस अब भी अपनी हरकतों से बाज नहीं आ रही है। कांग्रेस की सरकारें अब भी आपको लूटने में जुटी है। और मैं ऐसे ही नहीं कह रहा हूं, मेरे पास सबूत है कि सारे देश के लोगों को इतना लाभ हो रहा है। जब हमने जीएसटी की नई दरें लागू की तो सीमेंट से भी टैक्स कम कर दिया। हमारा मकसद यही था कि लोगों को अपना घर बनाने में, घर की मरम्मत कराने में सीमेंट सस्ता होने से कम पैसा खर्चना पड़े। 22 सितंबर के बाद अब आप देखिए, ये बयानबाजी करने वाले लोगों के करतूत देखिए। हिमाचल में कांग्रेस की सरकार है। भांति भांति की हमको गालियां देने की कांग्रेस को आदत पड़ गई है। लेकिन जब हमने जीएसटी का दाम कम किया तो पूरे देश में काम कम हुआ। लेकिन कांग्रेस आम जनता को ये सुख देना नहीं चाहती है। पहले जब हमने डीजल पेट्रोल में पैसा कम किया था तो जहां जहां कांग्रेस की सरकारें थी उन्होंने ऊपर से दूसरा टैक्स लगा करके उतना ही दाम रहने दिया और खुद तिजोरी भर करके लूट का रास्ता खोल दिया। ऐसा ही हिमाचल में कांग्रेस सरकार ने, जब हमारी सरकार ने सीमेंट का पैसा कम किया तो उन्होंने अपना एक नया ही टैक्स लगा दिया और इसलिए जो फायदा भारत सरकार हिमाचल के लोगों को देना चाहती थी, ये कांग्रेस की लूटबाज सरकार उसमें दीवार बन के खड़ी हो गई। इसलिए मैं कहता हूं, कांग्रेस की सरकार जहां भी रहेगी वहां लोगों को लूटेगी। इसलिए देश के लोगों को कांग्रेस से सावधान रहना ही है और उसके साथियों से भी बच के रहना है।
My colleague Himanshu Mishra is now joining me on the story. हिमांशु, जिस तरीके से प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी ने जीएसटी की बात करी, साथ साथ ये भी कहा कि सरकार यही चाहती है कि हर आदमी को जितना ज्यादा फायदा हो सकता है उतना फायदा सरकार पहुंचाने की कोशिश कर रही है।
देखिए, बिल्कुल प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी ने जीएसटी का जिक्र किया। उन्होंने बताया कि किस तरीके से सरकार जो है वो सीमेंट के ऊपर जीएसटी कम करके डायरेक्ट आम आदमी को लाभ देना चाहती है, जिससे वो घर बना सके, घर की मुरम्मत कर सके। लेकिन हम हिमाचल के उन्होंने उदाहरण दिया किस तरीके से जो है जीएसटी की दरों को लेकर जो है वो कहा गया। और इन सब तमाम चीजों को अगर देखा भी जाए तो उसके साथ साथ आज प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी ने जो है ऐश्वर्या वो 60,000 करोड़ से अधिक की परियोजनाओं का जो है वो शुभारंभ किया। झारसुगड़ा जो उड़ीसा के अंदर है और वहां पे स्वदेशी 4G नेटवर्क का जो है उद्घाटन किया गया है। 97,500 से अधिक मोबाइल टावर जो है 4G के वो राष्ट्र को जो है समर्पित किए गए हैं, जिनकी लागत जो है 37,000 करोड़ रुपए की है। उसके साथ साथ जो है अमृत भारत एक्सप्रेस को हरी झंडी दिखाई है प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी ने, जो सीधा जो है सूरत तक के लिए है। और उसके साथ साथ अंत्योदय गृह योजना के तहत जो है 50,000 लाभार्थियों को जो है वो पत्र जो है डिस्ट्रीब्यूट किए गए। तो इससे बताया जाता है कि प्रधानमंत्री लगातार जो है वो कैसे गरीब कल्याण योजनाओं के साथ साथ जो है डेवलपमेंटल प्रोजेक्ट्स को लेकर सोचते हैं और उनकी सरकार का जो कामकाज है वो सीधा जो है आम आदमी को डायरेक्ट कैसे फायदा पहुंचे, चाहे वो जीएसटी के माध्यम से हो या डेवलपमेंटल प्रोजेक्ट्स हो या इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर से जुड़ी चीजें हो, चाहे वो रेलवे हो या अगर आप देखें तो सोशल वेलफेयर स्कीम्स के तहत वो लगातार जो है आम आदमी का जो जीवन है उसको कैसे सरल बनाया जाए और उसमें किस तरीके से और जीवन स्तर को जो है ऊपर उठाया जाए, इसको लेकर उनकी सरकार काम कर रही है। लेकिन प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी का ये भी कहना है कि कांग्रेस जो है लगातार उनकी सरकार के खिलाफ जो है आरोप लगाती है और वो बेबुनियाद गलत आरोप लगाते हैं और उनकी पार्टी के खिलाफ जो है इस तरीके से कॉन्स्पिरेसी करते हैं जैसे उन्होंने सरकार के खिलाफ कोई काम किया।
जी हिमांशु, सारी जानकारी के लिए बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया। That was my colleague Himanshu bringing a perspective on what the Prime Minister said, also pointing fingers at what the Congress party has been doing over the past few years. News that's coming in from the state of Uttar Pradesh now. UP Chief Minister has given a direct warning to writers and to criminals. He sent out a warning signal and said that there will be dire consequences. Will teach an unforgettable lesson. This is a stern warning coming in from the Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister. Lesson that will make future generations think. This is Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath's direct jibe at the opposition. Writers honoured at the Chief Minister's house earlier. Mafia dogs shook hands with few netas. Earlier, the government saluted criminals, but this time, this won't happen.
तो मौलाना भूल गया कि शासन किसका है। वही मानता था धमकी देंगे और हम जबरदस्ती जाम कर देंगे। हमने कहा जाम नहीं होगा, कर्फ्यू भी नहीं लगेगा, लेकिन कर्फ्यू का सबक तुम्हें ऐसा सिखा देंगे कि तुम्हारी आने वाली पीढ़ी दंगा करना भूल जाएगी। क्या तरीका है ये? आप सिस्टम को ब्लॉक करना चाहते हैं और यह प्रवृत्ति थी यूपी के अंदर। 17 के पहले यही होता था और हम इसी बात को कह सकते हैं कि 17 के बाद हमने कर्फ्यू भी नहीं लगने दिया, लेकिन ऐसे बैरियर को चुन चुन करके वे जिस प्रकार की भाषा को समझते थे उस प्रकार की भाषा से उनको समझा करके उसको उसकी सजा दिलाने का काम भी किया है। और उत्तर प्रदेश की ग्रोथ स्टोरी यहीं से शुरू होती है। दंगाइयों को मुख्यमंत्री आवास में बुला के सम्मानित किया जाता था, दंगाइयों की आवभगत होती थी और पेशेवर अपराधी और माफियाओं के सामने सत्ता सैल्यूट करती थी और सत्ताधारी लोग उनके कुत्तों के साथ हाथ मिलाया करते थे। आपने वो दृश्य देखे होंगे कैसे सत्ता का मुखिया एक माफिया के कुत्ते से हाथ मिलाकर के अपने को गौरवान्वित महसूस करता था।
Santosh Sharma is now joining me on the story. Santosh, a very clear warning by the Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath. He is saying that this government is different. All those who are now on the streets protesting, speaking against the government, a warning has been given to them.
Definitely, this is the clear-cut warning of CM Yogi Adityanath to all those violators of the law, and especially he was concerned about the Bareilly incident, that this is a different government. Those who have broke the law, they will be given a clear-cut lesson, and Bareilly police has took all those actions against those who have broke the law yesterday after the Juma namaz. So we can say after the CM Yogi Adityanath gave this instruction not only in this public address but even last night when he was addressing a video conferencing law and order review meeting, he also clearly gave message to the officers that strict action should be taken against those who disturb the law and order of the state.
Right.
And that's the reason till now 11 FIRs have been lodged against all those persons in the Bareilly, and the action is going on.
Right, Santosh, please stay on with me. We've got some more news coming in from the state of Uttar Pradesh. Probe now intensifying in the Bareilly unrest case. 11 FIRs have been filed by the police in this case so far. Over 2,000 people have been booked by the police. Maulana Tauqeer Raza, he's been named in 2 FIRs. Office bearers of Razas, many others have been booked. My colleague Santosh is still with me on the story. Santosh, 11 FIRs have been filed. We understand Maulana Tauqeer Raza, he is someone who's been named in 2 FIRs. He's been picked up for questioning also. People close to him, close to 2,000 people have also been booked.
As we have talked earlier that CM Yogi has already given clear-cut instruction to take the strict action all those persons, and that's the reason the 11 FIRs have been lodged, and in all these 11 FIRs, in 2 FIRs, Maulana Tauqeer Raza is named accused of this whole violence of yesterday. Tauqeer Raza is named as a main conspirator, and not only the Tauqeer Raza, his other office bearers of his organization are also named in these 2 FIRs. So we can say Tauqeer Raza is is accused in the named FIR of Bareilly police, and his office bearers are also on the radar of Bareilly police. The action is going on till now. More than 39 persons have been arrested. 20 persons are still on the police custody. Police is investigating their role in the violence, and after that, if they found that they were present and they were involved in that violence, so they will also be sent to the jail. But we can say the main conspirator, the Maulana Tauqeer Raza, is booked in the 2 FIRs, and he's the named accused in the Bareilly police FIR, which have been lodged in the 3 police stations. That is the Subhash Nagar police station and Kotwali.
Thank you, Santosh, giving us all those details. We've got some news which is coming in. Charges against Sonam Wangchuk, that's something that is now being read out in the press conference. Listen in.
उनका एक अपना एजेंडा है जहाँ तक आपकी फॉरेन फंडिंग की बात कर रहे हैं, उसके ऊपर ऑलरेडी प्रोसेस चल रही है। FCRA की वायलेशन का कितना वहाँ पे है। हमने पिछले दिनों जब चलो इस प्लेटफॉर्म में बता देता हूँ, हमने एक पाकिस्तान PIO भी पकड़ा था जो इनके साथ उनकी रिपोर्टिंग करके अक्रॉस भेज रहा था। उसके भी एक हमारे पास रिकॉर्ड है। हमारे पास इनकी जो विजिट्स हैं, जैसे पाकिस्तान में डॉन की इवेंट इन्होंने वहाँ पे जाके किया, उसके बाद बांग्लादेश में, तो ये सारा एक बहुत बड़ा क्वेश्चन मार्क है इनके ऊपर। और इसके बीच में डिफरेंट एजेंसीज जो हैं जिनका ये काम है वो ऑलरेडी इसमें इन्वेस्टिगेशन कर रही हैं और उसमें एक्शन लेंगी। मैं इससे ज़्यादा इस पर और नहीं कह सकता।
आपने सर एंटी नेशनल एलिमेंट्स की बात कही आपने, और जो रिपोर्ट्स तमाम निकल के आ रही थी, मैं अमृत प्रकाश हूँ NI से, IG साहब ने भी उसको कोट किया कि नेपाल के कुछ एंटी सोशल एलिमेंट्स इसमें शामिल थे। अगर आप कोट कर पाएं, आपके पास कोई इनपुट्स हो, कितने लोग इसमें शामिल थे जो कि विदेश से ताल्लुक रख सकते थे, क्या कोई एंटी नेशनल कॉन्स्पिरेसी यहाँ पर थी?
देखिए, ये एक इन्वेस्टिगेशन का विषय है, पर जिस दिन हमारे जो फर्स्ट डे जिस दिन इंजर्ड जो लोग जब शिफ्ट किए गए, उसमें 2 नेपाली जो हैं बुलेट इंजरीज है, 2 की शायद 3 जो है वो नेपाली नेशनल यहाँ पे हॉस्पिटल में एडमिट थे। उसके बाद में हमने कुछ और लोग जो किए, उसमें से उनकी वेरिफिकेशन के बाद शायद 3-4 और ऐसे तत्व निकले हैं। 3 तो कंफर्म्ड हैं जो कि नेपाल नेशनल थे और जो हॉस्पिटल में एडमिट रहे हैं। जी देखिए, हम कर्फ्यू के बारे में हमारी सबसे बड़ी चिंता है, इससे पहले हमारी मीटिंग हो चुकी है। हमारा मेन एम है कि शांति बहाली हो जाए, और हम समझ सकते हैं लोगों की परेशानियां भी हैं, और ऑलरेडी हमने इसमें डिसीजन ले लिया है। अभी कर्फ्यू 1 से लेकर 3 बजे तक जो हम स्टैगर्ड तरीके से खोलने वाले हैं, ओल्ड सिटी में अभी खुल जाएगा, और जो चौक से नीचे वाला जो न्यू एरिया है उसमें हम 3:30 से 5:30 तक खोलेंगे। 2-2
ऐसे प्रोटेस्ट जो है काफी जगह पे देखा जा रहा है।
पब्लिक पार्टिसिपेट जिन लोगों का ऑब्लिगेटरी है वहाँ पे आना, जो क्लोज रिलेटिव्स हैं, उनके लिए ऑलरेडी हमने अरेंजमेंट कर लिया है और उनको हम सेफली लाएंगे। हम नहीं चाहते कि फ्यूनरल के टाइम, क्योंकि हर जगह डिप्लॉयमेंट है, हर जगह रोड ब्लॉक है, किसी को इनकन्वीनियंस हो, हम उसको अरेंज कर रहे हैं।
सर फॉलो किया बिफोर फायरिंग ऑन द यूज, क्योंकि बुलेट मार्क से 4 का डेथ हुआ है सर, तो SOP फॉलो किया कि नहीं किया?
मैं आपको बता रहा हूँ, SOP जो सेल्फ डिफेंस है, जो आपकी लाइफ और प्रॉपर्टी और सेल्फ डिफेंस जो हमारा मेन चार्टर है, उसको डिफेंड करने के लिए इन द राइट ऑफ सेल्फ डिफेंस जो है फायरिंग की जा सकती है, और वही कारण था जब फायरिंग हुई है। अगर आप वीडियो फुटेज देखें और आप उसमें देखें कि अगर किस हालात में हमारी पुलिस फोर्स ने जो परफॉर्म किया है, इट्स कमेंडेबल। आई सैल्यूट देम।
सर एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन का बताया जा रहा है ये फेलियर है, क्योंकि जब वो BJP की तरफ गए, देयर वर नो लेस सिक्योरिटी देयर, और इतना इजीली वहाँ यूथ घुस गए और आग लगा दी।
मैडम, मैं आपको देखिए कहने वाली बात ऐसा कुछ नहीं है। मैं जो आपको फर्स्ट इंसिडेंट बताया, जिस हमारी 4 लद्दाख पुलिस की लड़कियां जो उस बिल्डिंग के अंदर फंस गई, वो BJP ऑफिस ही था। उसी ऑफिस में जिसको आग लगा के और जिसको हमने बड़ी मुश्किल से रिट्रीव किया, और जो हमारे पुलिस CRP के ऑफिसर हैं जो अभी भी एक स्पाइनल इंजरी के साथ इमोबाइल होके आर्मी हॉस्पिटल में पड़े हुए हैं, ये वहीं की सिचुएशन है।
सर, अभी तक इस मामले को लेकर कितनी FIR रजिस्टर्ड हुई हैं, कितनी गिरफ्तारियां हुई, और क्या गिरफ्तारियों में कोई फॉरेन नेशनल या लद्दाख के बाहर का कोई इंडिविजुअल है?
देखिए, मेरी अभी तक की जो नॉलेज है, 44 लोग हमने जो है वो गिरफ्तार किए हुए हैं जो जेल में हैं। उसमें से 5-6 जो हैं जो मेन रिंग लीडर्स हैं वो पकड़े गए, और ऑब्वियसली सोनम वांगचुक जो मेन उसका इंस्ट्रूमेंट प्लेयर था, उसको हमने NSA के भेज दिया बाहर।
सोनम वांगचुक के पीछे क्या पाकिस्तान से भी जुड़े तत्व हो सकते हैं जो देश में अस्थिरता पैदा करना?
देखिए, सारा मीडिया में सबको पता है उनकी डॉन की जो इवेंट और जो पाकिस्तान में उन्होंने बयान दिए हैं, और खासकर मैंने एक और इंसिडेंट बताया जिसमें एक पाकिस्तान PIO जो है यहाँ से, जिन्होंने अक्रॉस हमने देखा, जिन्होंने जो वीडियो भेजने वाले, और उनके जो बाकी लिंक्स हैं, जो फॉरेन फंडिंग है, एक बड़ा इन्वेस्टिगेशन का विषय है और उसमें काम चल रहा है।
सर, क्योंकि लद्दाख को जैसे आपने बताया कि किस तरह से पुलिस, आर्मी और लोकल्स का रिश्ता रहता है, और इसमें सभी नेशनल मीडिया लद्दाख को एक एंटी नेशनल के रूप में अभी जितने भी न्यूज़ है वहाँ चला है। वो फुटेज क्यों नहीं दिया गया सर, जहाँ पे वो इंडियन फ्लैग लेके हाथ में लेके, और जो अम्बेडकर का पोर्ट्रेट है, जो वहाँ हिज बकुलर रिम्पोचे जी का पोर्ट्रेट वहाँ से निकाला गया है, और बहुत प्राउडली भारत माता की जय के नारा लगा के वो निकल रहे थे। तो वाई
मैडम, पुलिस का काम फुटेज बांटना या एक
इंटरनेशनल का एक वो,
मैडम मेरी बात सुन लीजिए, पुलिस का काम जो है लॉ एंड ऑर्डर मेंटेन कर।
Now, activist Sonam Wangchuk, who's been leading the statehood movement in Ladakh, has now been arrested under the National Security Act. This arrest comes just days after Wednesday's violent protest took place in Ladakh and they claimed 4 lives. Wangchuk has now been shifted to Rajasthan's Jodhpur Central Jail. After completing the formalities, he was flown in a special flight and brought to jail under tight security. He's now been kept in a high-security ward. He's under 24-hour CCTV surveillance. A medical examination has also been done. The government is alleging Wangchuk made very provocative statements and made sure that the protesters were out on the streets, and that's the reason why there was massive violence. The opposition has slammed this arrest. They are saying it is unfortunate. The Congress has termed it as a divisive tactic, while the Aam Aadmi Party held a candlelight march in the national capital. They are saying that the case against Wangchuk is false.
प्रशासन की तरफ से कोई ऐसा प्रयास नहीं है कि हम किसी को परेशान करना चाहते हैं, लेकिन जिन लोगों ने माहौल खराब किया है उनको पर एक्शन होना जरूरी है। तो धीरे धीरे स्थिति सामान्य हो रही है, वो आप देख रहे हैं। तो मुझे लगता है कि एहतियातन जिस प्रकार से 163 लगाया है और उसके साथ ही स्कूल कॉलेजेस को बंद किया गया है, या ऐसा वर्तमान हालात को देखते हुए जरूरी था। तो उम्मीद है कि 1-2 दिन में सिचुएशन ठीक हो जाएगी।
मेरा ये कहना है कि अगर इसमें फॉरेन हैंड है, कुछ डोडा के लोग जख्मी हैं, कुछ नेपालीज जख्मी है, तो क्या नेपाल से 1-2 आदमी आके, डोडा से 3 लोग आके हमारे 5000 जवानों को भड़का सकते हैं 2-3 दिन में? ये हमारे यूथ का फ्रस्ट्रेशन था। कोई फॉरेन हैंड, कोई सोनम वांगचुक, कोई कांग्रेस वाला, इनका कोई, मैं इस बात को बिल्कुल नहीं मानता हूँ। ये हमारे यूथ का फ्रस्ट्रेशन था, उनके अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट का, और उसी का ये नतीजा था।
वांगचुक जी की गलती सिर्फ क्या यही है कि उन्होंने जनता की आवाज को और वहां पर त्रस्त हो रहे, परेशान हो रही जो जनता है, जिन्हें वादा किया गया था उनके राज्य का दर्जा उन्हें देने का, वहां पे सुख सुविधाएं देने का, वहां पर नौकरी उपलब्ध कराने के लिए, उन आवाज को अगर वो उठा रहे हैं, जो कि एक बार नहीं, मुझे लगता है कि 4-4, 5-5 बार उन्होंने अनशन और आंदोलन किए हुए हैं, तो उनका ये देश सम्मान करता है। संविधान को मानने वाले सभी लोग उनको ससम्मान एक बहुत ही जिम्मेदार नागरिक के रूप में मानते हैं। जो व्यवहार कल एक आपराधिक रूप से उनके एक अपराधी मानकर, एक क्रिमिनल मानकर जो एक्टिविटी की है, ये बहुत ही निंदास्पद है। आज पूरा देश वांगचुक जी के साथ खड़ा हुआ है, लद्दाख की जनता के साथ खड़ा है।
वांगचुक जी की जो अरेस्ट है यही बताती है कि हमारे देश में डेमोक्रेसी रही नहीं है। कोई भी अगर अपने हक की बात करे, कोई भी अपने जो उन्हें प्रॉमिस किया था उसी के लिए मांग करे, उसे एंटी नेशनल कहा जाता है।
On that note, it's a wrap on this bulletin. Thank you for watching India Today. For more news and updates, you can log on to indiatoday.in. You can even download the app. This is me, Ashwara Paliwal, signing off.
You are watching India Today.
Moto G96 5G. All eyes on you.
Hello, Moto. Do the Moto.
Motorola Edge 60 Fusion, the undisputed, most loved phone.
सुकून से मुलाकात कब होती है? जब गुनगुनाती बारिश को पहली बार गले लगाते हो। शायद सर्द वादियों में, जब गरम कंबल से रूह सेकते हो। या शायद उस पल में जो बिना शोर किए बहुत कुछ कह जाता है। सुकून के हर पहलू से कीजिए मुलाकात हिंदवेयर के साथ। हिंदवेयर, डिजाइन्ड फॉर सुकून।
We're in the city of Jaipur to interview our next guest for Unpolitics. Is the Chief Minister of Rajasthan, Mr. Bhajan Lal Sharma.
पहले तो ये बताइए, आपको पता था आप सीएम बनने वाले हैं?
किसी भी कार्यकर्ता को किसी भी सीट्स पद पर काम करने का उसको मौका मिल सकता है।
कैसे थे आप एबीवीपी में? दबंगी टाइप थे या दिमाग लगाते थे? अग्रेसिव थे? नहीं।
अगर आपका विषय अच्छा है तो अग्रेसिव भी होना चाहिए।
भजनलाल शर्मा जी की ऑपोजिशन से ज्यादा बनती है, अपनी पार्टी में कम बनती है राजस्थान में। ऐसे बनती है ऑपोजिशन से? अशोक गहलोत के साथ थोड़ी हंसी मजाक होता है?
विपक्ष सरकार की ताकत होता है, लेकिन मुद्दे अच्छे हों।
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com. Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com.
In a few days from now, the Bihar elections will be announced, and the elections are expected in November this year. It's the last big battle of 2025, which is why my colleague Maria Shakir and I want to ask the big question: who is winning the battle for Bihar? And to answer that question, I'm joined by three special guests. Amitabh Tiwari of Voter Vibes joins me. Yashwant Deshmukh of Sea Voter, and Pradeep Gupta of Axis My India. So three psephologists are here, three pollsters are here. Before we go anywhere else, I want to ask all three of you, after what happened in 2024, where almost all of you had egg on your face, which I would have presumed you're still wiping off, you're still going to predict elections? Mr. Pradeep Gupta? You still want to predict elections after what happened in 2024, where you said 400 par that ended up in 280, 290? Go ahead.
Rajdeep.
I won't make you cry this time.
No, I'm telling you, I'm replying you, don't worry on that front. Who will stop playing after losing one or two matches?
Aha.
I mean, we need to play on, and nevertheless, as you mentioned, the wiping the axe out, just to once again, I'm not trying to defend our community or myself. See, for predicting any election, what is the prime objective? Who is likely to win the election, isn't it? And even during Lok Sabha 2024, we have predicted NDA 360 odd seats to 400 seats, as you rightly pointed out, and NDA ended up winning 293 seats. So still NDA formed the government, and the first very objective of predicting the election was somehow we could not predict it as we are known for the accurate numbers, etc., which is fine and fair.
Okay, but let's start with Bihar and tell you what happened in the last 3 assembly elections in Bihar. So you have a sense of why Bihar is such a difficult state at times to understand. What happened in 2010 was a clear landslide for the NDA. The JDU, BJP just swept Bihar like never before, 115 to JDU, 91 to BJP in a 234-member assembly. Come 2015, just the reverse happened. The Mahagathbandhan or the opposition swept it with Lalu Prasad and Nitish coming close, forging an alliance. Nitish is the common factor, as you will see. By 2020, though, it was as tight as it could get. Just a 12,000 vote difference between the two main alliances. So 3 elections, 3 very different verdicts. Amitabh Tiwari, is Bihar therefore a nightmare for psephologists, or is it a relatively easier state that wherever 2 out of the 3 parties align, the major parties, JDU, RJD and BJP, if 2 go on one side, game, set and match. It's like a triangle. 2 have to go on one side and you win the election, more often than not.
See, it is a trickier state in the sense that in both 2015 and 2020, most of the pollsters have got it wrong. Because in 2015, it was generally believed that NDA would win. And in 2020, it was a consensus that Mahagathbandhan is winning. But NDA won the elections in the end. So it's a tricky state for pollsters because there are many parties involved here. There are not just these top 3 parties, but many smaller parties which bring an additional vote share to different alliances. And most of these smaller parties are with different partners in different elections. Correct? So this time around also it looks to be a very tight battle. And we have 1.5 months of campaign left. Elections have not been announced yet.
And I just want to add that, make Pradeep Gupta smile. He actually got 2015 right.
Yes.
When everyone else was predicting an NDA victory, there was a Modi wave after 2014. Pradeep Gupta got that election right. So, kuch aap sahi nikalte, kuch galat nikalte, that's life.
And Pradeep also had spoken about 2020 Bihar. Of course, the elections, many say, Rajdeep, that shifted from the first phase to the second phase. And the sense was that in the second phase, more women came out to vote. So let's look at the second slide because this becomes important in the context of Bihar. Because on 27th of this month, close to 80 lakh women of Bihar will get 10,000 rupees each. Let's look at this number now. We are looking at northern and eastern Bihar, which are dominated by shades of red and orange, which actually indicate that women outvoted men by a significant margin. In fact, in Baisi, it is almost like 22% more women turn out. Elections were actually moving from this side to upwards, and that is the reason why it became difficult to predict the elections in 2020. When we look at western and southern part of Bihar, that's where men perhaps voted more, and that is Bikram, minus 11.2%. But women in general have been that very important factor in the context of Bihar, and that's why I'll bring you again, Pradeep Gupta. Because when you speak about 2020, the vote share or vote difference between the NDA and the Mahagathbandhan is just around 12,000 votes. Many would say that that is largely the vote that administration brings in if the elections shift. When the vote, the counting process begins and it starts moving. But with direct benefit transfer coming in this election, has it become even more difficult?
I would not say difficult, but I would say it makes at least one of the party or Gathbandhan lives easier to predict. In the sense, if this is working out, the direct transfer of money to the woman's account, and if women are shifting in bulk, then our life and everybody's life is much easier to predict.
But are they really shifting? Won't you say that they are already captive audience of Nitish?
That is something, Maria, you are trying to ask who is winning or if they are shifting. I wish I could answer this question. Even at this point of time, I would say, even बिहार के वोटरों को नहीं पता है कि किसको वोट करना है. That is the kind of dynamics playing out in the battleground of Bihar.
No, but are we right in saying, and Yashwant, you can take this, over the last 10 years, or maybe even longer, whoever gets a majority of the women votes wins. Delhi was a slight exception. Arvind Kejriwal and the BJP were almost neck and neck in women. In fact, Arvind may have had the Aam Aadmi Party may have had a slight edge. But by and large, Mamta Banerjee, Narendra Modi himself, yes. Shivraj Singh Chauhan, here in Maharashtra last year, Ladki Bahin scheme made a huge difference. Would you agree that whoever gets the woman vote, and Nitish Kumar has consistently got a large section of the woman vote for his various schemes, has a huge advantage in Indian elections today? That the real factor to look at in an election is the M factor, not Muslims, but Mahila.
Absolutely. I mean, goes without saying. I mean, but there is a very, very significant difference as far as the M factor of Bihar is concerned when you compare it or look through the lenses of certain Madhya Pradesh Ladki Bahin scheme or Ladli Bahin scheme of Nitish Kumar is not Shivraj Singh Chauhan. Nitish Kumar is not Eknath Shinde. For a simple reason. Nitish happens to be, at least in my living memory, the first person with a very, very significant approach towards the female vote bank. He started 25 years back, Rajdeep, when he distributed bicycles and poshak, as we call it, the uniforms, to the school-going girls in Bihar. And why I feel it is very different, because Mr. Shinde's Yojana or Shivraj Singh Chauhan's Yojana was out of the blue one-time payment thing, while when I look at the brand Nitish Kumar, the daughters of Bihar which got a bicycle and the uniform 25 years back are now the housemakers, the entrepreneurs, the mothers now. And their connection, emotional connect with Nitish Kumar is altogether very different. What emotional connect of female voters in Maharashtra with Mr. Shinde or with Mr. Shivraj Singh Chauhan, even though Mr. Shivraj Singh Chauhan was more popularly known as Mama. But no, Nitish Kumar's personal connect on the female voter is way more intense and way more deep-rooted than any other politician in India.
Yes.
And am I right in saying women now vote far more than they did even 30, 40 years ago?
Yes.
Women turnout has grown. Is it easy for a cephalogist, though, to get and gauge the women voter?
It's
politically people say, because politically people say what Nitish Kumar is doing on the eve of an election is a total bribe. I'm putting 10,000 rupees in the pockets of women. Others will say it's gender empowerment. Do you believe it's easy for a cephalogist? We don't even need to know the numbers if, in such a situation.
See, it is difficult because when you go out on the field or when you are doing surveys through calling, fewer females turn up to discuss with you because political discussions many females would not want to do on a face-to-face basis. One data point here which is very interesting is that on 167 seats, the women turnout was more than men. And NDA won 99 of those seats. This entire chunk of red, which was on the top,
yes.
The NDA swept North Bihar, literally swept North Bihar, including Seemanchal, which has a higher minority population. So this shows what Yashwantji and Pradeepji has been saying, that the woman vote can be the kingmaker again, and this 10,000 rupees is a big amount from Bihar's perspective, where the per capita income is also not rupees 10,000. The per capita income is only 6,000 to 7,000. Bribing of voters, yes, you have a point, but that's what happened in MP. One can argue that's what happened in Maharashtra here. Who would have said that NDA was winning 234 seats during the election? That's what happened in Jharkhand. Correct. So this is something which needs to be discussed. We need to discuss as a whole. And even the Supreme Court or the Election Commission needs to work on this. Because if NDA wins Bihar, then this becomes a recipe or a formula for winning elections, which we all have to think about.
And women again are caste neutral as they are seen. Let's move to the other slide that we have, and this is about the caste. Because we say often in the context of Bihar that it's pure arithmetic which is at work here. Let's put out the caste numbers. And this becomes important because it is often said that for Nitish or NDA, it is Mahila plus, their MY is Mahila plus youth. Again, Bihar in that bracket of 18 to 29 age group, there is a huge number, close to 40%. So this is the caste calculation or caste axis of Bihar. Yadavs are around 27%, and Yadav plus Muslims, which is coming to around 35%, would be the captive vote of Lalu Yadav's party, which is RJD. So we are talking about Tejasvi here. Koiri, Kurmis, non-Yadav OBCs again become important because that is again a significant number of 15%, which moves with Nitish Kumar.
So these are basically 105 seats out of 234, where in the last 3 elections, people from the same caste have won.
Yes.
So caste, it's almost as if people in Bihar don't cast their vote, they vote their caste. Do you agree with that, Pradeep Gupta? Between Mahila and caste is the easiest way to decipher Bihar. 105 out of 234 seats in the last 3 elections, the same caste member has won the election.
In case of Bihar, Rajdeep, this caste factor hold more good than the women factor. Women is anywhere and everywhere. It's like a phenomenon. Why I'm saying you caste? Because Bihar is the only state in that term where Yadav and Muslim combined contributes more than 31-32% of the total vote chunk. But the beauty here is, unlike Uttar Pradesh or even West Bengal or even Assam, Assam also has 30% Muslim, and West Bengal too have. But here in Bihar particularly, the equation is such a way spread across the Bihar, all the 6 regions of Bihar, M plus Y is in the excess of 27%. Even in both the, which is sometime you say that, Mithilanchal and Bhojpur, even in these 2 regions also it is in the excess of 27% of MY combined, which is Muslim and Yadav. So this is the reason why the en masse vote of RJD has always been intact in last 30 to 35 years.
So are we saying, Yashwant Deshmukh, that if Bihar in that sense remains the last Mandal bastion? By and large, Bihar has to be seen through the prism of caste like no other Indian state today. Would you agree with that?
Not fully. I mean, see, UP has been seeing that a Muslim Yadav equation in the similar way, but Akhilesh experimented with MY+. In the last Lok Sabha election, his success came around only because outside the 5 members, immediate members, he did not give any ticket to 6th Yadav candidate. Outside few Muslim candidates, he refused to give tickets to Muslim candidates. So, yes, he kind of tried to experiment and he benefited out of it. Now it remains to be seen how much of this experiment can Tejasvi Yadav afford to do in Bihar. However,
so is that the challenge, that for Tejasvi Yadav he has to go beyond MY?
Of course, because
Muslim plus Yadav is 35%, much greater than UP, but he still needs additional support from other groups.
Rajdeep, it's a self-defeating equation. When was the last time Lalu Yadavji won in Bihar? Do you remember that? The only person who has been winning Bihar is Nitish Kumar. Without Nitish Kumar, nobody is able to win. Why? Because he significantly holds true of some voter which he takes as a pendulum this way or that way and that way. So MY on its own is a self-defeating argument. That's the bottom line. Can they do MY plus? If they, otherwise every party in India actually has some or other basic caste equation working in its favor in different states. That's the social fabric. Let's not forget it. Caste is the social fabric. So more than Bihar, it is the Tamil Nadu. Look at the Tamil Nadu politics. What kind of casteist politics that you have? I think Tamil Nadu beats Bihar hands down as far as the caste equations are concerned.
So do you think that youth can again be a constituency this time around? And if they are so critical, then will there be some kind of nostalgia for a chief minister who brought on the surface the subnational identity? Although right now Nitish Kumar is largely missing from the political scene.
I think just one data point, if I add here, on 105 seats, the same caste is winning, has been winning in 3 elections. On 113 seats, 2 out of 3 elections, the same caste wins. So it becomes 220, 218 actually out of 243. Anyways, so youth, if we measure the amount of anti-incumbency, the youth show the highest anti-incumbency because they consume everything on social media. However, unlike 2020, when Tejasvi Yadav got a lot of support from youth, this time around, even Prashant Kishore is getting traction amongst youth. So the youth which is disgruntled, let's say, with the Nitish Kumar regime, is getting divided between two camps, Tejasvi and Prashant Kishore. Prashant Kishore has also, by consistently targeting the education status of Tejasvi Yadav, has impacted his brand image amongst the youth. Because youth prefer educated leaders, etc. Correct? And 30% chunk is still with NDA. So NDA still has 30-35 with Mahagathbandhan and 10 to 15 with Jan Swaraj Party as of now.
So let's look at that, the Prashant Kishore factor, the PK factor. There is always an X factor in Indian election. No two Indian elections are the same. The one new factor in Bihar this time is Prashant Kishore, the election strategist turned politician, and his Jan Swaraj Party. So this was a